All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Halloween to everyone out there. And that's the opening statement. So, just got some questions.
PJ, I know you don't like the word conservative when it's talked about your offense. How would you describe kind of the game plan that you had against Rutgers?
Well, I mean, we talked to Mohammed that he might have to be ready to carry the ball anywhere between 35 and 40 times. And he did exactly that within a few numbers, right? So we knew it was going to be that type of game with both teams. I mean, there was 23 total minutes of the first quarter. It's a 15-minute quarter. But usually, 15 minutes could last an hour and a half. It lasts 23 total minutes. You make a game plan based on who you're going to play and what type of game you think it's going to be, and then what you have available, what they're giving you. But we marched down the field, 99-yard drive, 86-yard drive, and it's 14-0. And then we have a holding penalty, and we're driving the ball again, and then the same thing happens on the next drive. And but we did what we had to do to win the football game, and I don't know what the word conservative necessarily means. You're doing what it takes to win the football game, and our defense got us 2 takeaways, and we scored on those 2 possessions, and we scored 31 points and won the football game. Our defense played really well. And you're making calls based on what you're seeing out there on the field. So, but we knew we would have to be a very heavy run, and Muhammad was going to have to really lead us, and we talked about that all week with him, because he hadn't had that many carries leading up to this game, but leading into it, we told him that's what he'd have to be ready for, and thought he did a really good job executing that.
Do you remember the first time you met Muhammad? What was your first impression of his size?
Depends where you're going to go with this, Chip, right? Obviously, well, I'm such a tall, full of hair, just stunning individual. So when you're talking about what do I think of an individual who's shorter than me, when you watched him play, you knew his height and weight is not jumping off the film, but you're watching him as a player. You're watching him. How does he play that position? And if he isn't that big, does he play really big? And then he did, right? And then when you meet him, you could see he's going to be really thick from the lower body. He's going to have huge legs. And you match that with the type of style that we have, and he's going to fit that. And being able to get underneath people's pads, get to the third level, deliver a blow, have great yards after contact. I mean, he had 92 yards after contact this past game. That's what our system requires. That's what running the football, in my opinion, you need a back that can do that. And for me, he's lower to the ground. He's got great center of gravity when you see him. I mean, again, I'm not sure everybody in the country is going to come after him because of his physical stature, but he was perfect for me. It was like the 3 Bears. It was just right for us, because I know what that's like to be an undersized player, and he is undersized if you look at him. But some of the best backs in the country right now, the kid at Syracuse, kid at Kansas State, I mean, they're not the biggest guys, but they're playing at an exceptionally high level. I think they're really good tailbacks. Not to say that it means you have to be shorter to be a great tailback, but when you saw him, I was like, listen, this kid, the way he plays and the type of person he is going to overcome what his deficiencies are in height and weight.
How much of an asset is it to have a tight end like Brevin who can put stress on defenses by lining up in so many different spots?
Well, I think that's, as you can see, I mean, our tight end's our leading receiver, and we've had to be able to do some things that we talked about even in the offseason that we think our tight ends are going to be way more involved, especially him. And now he's our leading receiver. When was the last time our tight end led the wide receiving core or the pass game in receptions? I mean, not since I've been here. But we have to be able to make up for some of the guys that we don't have. Brevin's done a really good job, I think, in the run game, which has allowed us to be able to move him formationally, put him in motion at different times, which put us in an advantage in some situations when we are having success running the football.
When it comes to the play of Tyler Nubin, what have you been most impressed by this season?
Well, there's nothing surprising about what he does, but impressed is just how much he applies the things he learns from the week. He applies the coaching techniques, the philosophy, why we're actually running the things we're running on defense, and him executing to exactly how they need to be executed. He just plays the game with such passion, so much energy. He loves the game. He's a very loose guy when you're around him in terms of personality. He doesn't take things too serious, and that makes him a really good football player because he has incredible confidence. He understands the scheme. He understands how he fits within the scheme. And again, when you have guys who love the game, and whether it's going well or not, they love playing in the game, and they can overcome their failings. They can persevere through the tough times, and they also can really enjoy the times when it's going well, but not get too high. That's when you got really, really good team and really good players, and Tyler is that leader for us on the defensive side of the ball for sure.
As you look towards the next week, what stands out to you about Nebraska?
Well, we're looking at them right now. That's the hard part. Press conference with Monday mornings, but we've looked at them last night. We've seen them when we've game planned other teams. They've got really explosive wide receivers. I'm sure everybody knows that. Quarterback position, there's 3 guys they've played all year and rotated at times. And I'm not sure which ones they're going to play. I'm not sure if Casey's going to play or not, but the 2 behind him. I know Coach Mickey's talked a little bit about Chuba and talked a little bit more towards that side. But we don't know which one they're going to actually play. So they all 3 of them do very similar things. They're very mobile with their feet. They can throw the ball down the field. They've had a ton of explosive plays in the last 2 games, a ton. Most of their explosive plays throughout the entire year have come within the last 2 weeks. And defensively speaking, a lot of guys we played against in the past, I think 44 on their defensive line. So we played against him forever, the Nelson kid. And, they've got a really long athletic secondary. Every time we always play Nebraska, I always look across the 50-yard line. I'm like, man, that's a good-looking football team, man. I mean, they're all above the rim. And to credit to what they've done in recruiting and the type of athletes they have. But again, they have a system. They've stuck to that system. We've got some more data in terms of the defensive side. There was a defensive coordinator change, and we have some data with that as well, which helps. But again, we're going into Lincoln, and we know it's going to be another sellout and a hostile environment.
What challenge does facing an interim staff present to your team?
Well, I think you just have to go based on, what the games present themselves as face value, what you see on film. Right, and the characteristics that team shows now, right? And the players have been there all year, so you can watch the personnel throughout the entire year. But in terms of schematics, Coach Whipple's still the offensive coordinator running his system. Defensively, you have 4 games of data that you can watch and really study and learn from, and how that differs from the past. But really, you that doesn't change as much. Maybe as some of the situational calls. Maybe Mickey's going to be different from Scott on that, but that's really kind of in-game decisions that, there's not a ton of data from. But you handle it as it shows on film and game plan accordingly.
How would you evaluate the vertical passing game right now?
There's not a lot of it.
What do you think that is?
Well, again, you go back to what you have to be able to do. You have to know what it's going to be able to take what it's going to take for things to win games. We have thrown the ball vertically, and that's where we've thrown some of our interceptions over the last few games. Okay, so the 2 games that we lost that I feel like was because of a vertical passing game, that can maybe make you hesitant to be able to do that again, because, again, you're not doing something to not lose a game. But knowing what can cost you a game is part of winning a game. Right, so when I know that even before the half, we call timeouts. We're gonna go attack. Well, if we catch the punt, it's different. The punt rolls 25 yards, goes back. Now we're backed up at the -20 with no timeouts. I've also been in that situation before. We're up 14-0 or something like that. Sack, fumble, pick up 14-7. Very different story than getting the ball in the second half. You're going to evaluate things as they continue to come. You're going to have a plan, but then that plan can change immediately. We've put ourselves in really bad positions over what the data shows and the proof shows. When we have gone down the field vertically, that's when we've actually thrown our most interceptions right now. So we've got to evaluate that. We've got to create it formationally better to be able to do it, put guys in a position where maybe that doesn't happen as much. Tanner was 14 of 21. We had 4 drops in the game. That's 18 of 21. That's very similar performance to the Michigan State game, which I thought he played really well. Now, all the blame and credit goes on quarterbacks and things like that, and I get that. But we had 4 drops, and I don't think we're that hard. That puts you in a position like, all right, that can cost you. And so there's things that your team shows you that we're getting better at, that we're not getting better at, that we have to improve at, that what can cost us, what do we have to get better at, when can we trust it again, what do we have to do to show we can trust it? As you keep going through the season, that's what you keep working on. So I agree with you that the answer is not just that. When we do it, we have to execute it. And if we haven't executed it, what has that done to cost us a game? And has it cost us a game? And I felt at times the head coach it has. But again, you do what you have to do, and you're making those calls within the game based on how the game is going.
You have to see in practice too to feel.
Absolutely, 100%. Yep. There's a lot of times we go throughout the week, and there's things like, hey, we really like that on the board. We go out there, and we just don't execute it as well. We throw it out. There's things that we have, like, I'm not sure how good this works. You get really good at it. We're like, all right, we're going to keep it in. Run game, pass game. Same with defensive blitzes, defensive schemes. Hey, we really like this. This could really help. Our guys just don't have a good feel for it. We're going to throw that out. But I think every coach goes through that. Every head coach has to make those decisions. And those are, that's why you have to make those calls, but we won 31-0. That's the point of the game, is to win. How we win, it's going to be very different from week in, week out. And maybe some people won't like that part, but that's okay. We've won really close games that maybe we didn't play very well, and people loved it. But maybe we didn't play so well. We played really good and maybe won by a lot, but some of you didn't like how we won. That's a sign of a program going in the right direction and people not liking how we win. But for the most part, the people that talk to me, if you win and you win the way that you need to win, and you have a happy locker room, you can approach all those things on Sunday. But we had 10 total possessions. I mean, and you're not going to do things that cost you a game, but we had 2 holding calls that crushed us on drives. And we're moving the football. But going into the game, we knew we were going to have to run the ball a lot.
If you can forgive a looking ahead question, I was wondering what you
Sure,
thought
that's
about the 2023 schedule that came out last week.
Schedule question of 2023. That's all right.
It was particularly glaring from a Gophers standpoint. I think most people thought, just as far as the East games you got, and sort of building off that, it could be the last year of the divisions. Don't know.
Yeah.
What does that matter to you guys moving forward when you're gonna have 16 teams in? And what's
Who doesn't know if we even stop at 16 too, right? I mean, nobody really knows. My responsibility is Minnesota go for football, making sure that we're prepared for everything on and off the field, the best we possibly can. Keep developing elite young men on and off the field, holding them accountable for everything we do as young men. And no matter if they're freshmen or seniors, no matter if they've been here a short amount of time, long enough, or a long time, and uphold the standard of what we believe in. And that's what we're going to keep focusing on. I know that as we keep going down the road, there's a lot of unanswered questions right now and not much certainty of what the Big Ten will look like in terms of how many teams, divisions, pods. Nobody really knows. But all we have to focus on is right now. But I'm glad we're in the Big Ten. I'm glad we're at Minnesota. I think we're in a really good position. So the future of college football, I think we all know, is going to look very different here in a few years. But it's always – change is inevitable, as you've always heard me say. So college football today looks very different than it did 10 years ago. You just kind of adapt, and it seems way bigger because it's now, right? But going from the BCS to the college football playoff, that changed it. Now wanting to expand that's going to change that. People changing conferences is a big deal, but we've done that forever. I think just because of the TV, it's sped up a little bit more, where things maybe every big change like that 10 to 12 years or 15 years have all kind of happened almost every other year. Every third year, now every year. But I think that TV drives that too.
PJ, I know 6 wins isn't the standard, but what would it mean for this group to get bowl eligible this week?
It's just being 1-0. And that's all we're going to focus on. That's not what the whole goal is, and the whole goal of this week is we got to play our best football. And to Ryan's point, it's I want to see our team play as balanced, right, and as well as we possibly can. And that's the standard. And that's what I evaluate every Sunday when we walk in. And that's what we want to do. And that's going to be our goal this week. What we show in practice, what we show we can do in practice, what we show as individuals, what we show if guys are ready for roles or not. That's what we'll determine as we keep going forward. But there's a lot of factors that go involved in that. But to us, just do everything we can to be 1-0 against a really good Nebraska team on the road.
You talked about creating interior defensive line pressure.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that is, and how can you generate more of it?
Well, I think it's one thing. It's about what do you think it is with 4. Let's just start with that. And then how can you generate? Well, how you can generate it more is stunts and blitzes, right? But you also have to have the personnel you have get better. And I thought this week, we shrunk the pocket better. I think around the country, as you look at people who lead the country in sacks, lead the conferences in sacks, I think the sacks are way down. Balls are getting out of the hand faster. Now, the RPO systems can make things a little bit different. Even some of the top offenses in the country are very spread out, balls out so quick. They're not allowing people to get to the quarterback and get a ton of sacks. So our whole goal this week was shrinking the pocket from within, in the middle, and the outside. And I thought we did a good job of that. We created some throws that needed to be done earlier than maybe they expected, got some tip passes, I think Ja had a sack and a half. We created some incompletions because of some pressure. Is it where we want it? No. Was it better? Yes. And I think that's a compliment to us getting them better and them wanting to be better. Coaching, playing. Now, we have to get a lot better and create a lot more. This is by no means the standard of it, but I thought it improved from last week to this week.
What did you think of the way the O-line executed in the ground game against Rutgers?
Well, I thought it was a very, very physical game. I mean, we're talking about a top 10 defense. Okay, so, we can talk about how we won and what the score was and all that other stuff. I mean, they're a top 10 defense. We know it was going to be, a tough, physical Big Ten football game. And I thought up front, besides a few holding penalties, I thought we played really hard, really tough. We played really well together. Do we have to bend, be lower, and not lean as much? Yes, but that's all part of technique. And nobody's better at teaching that than Brian Callahan, and he'll get that part right. But I thought that we finished on our blocks. We finished downhill. We pushed piles when we can. Not a lot of teams have had success running the football against them. I mean, what are they averaging? 89 yards, 86 yards rushing. So, I thought that was pretty good. So I focus on the things that I know internally when we're building that game plan of what we're going to have to do to make that work. And I thought we controlled the ball, controlled the clock, controlled the game, made decisions that gave us the best chance to win. And those are what you're doing. And I thought our offensive line led the way in that. Do I think our pass pro has to get better? Yes. But I can go through every single position and tell you what we have to actually get better at. That's a job of a coach, right? As Hugh McCutcheon, who, wish all the best, who's I'm a huge fan of and very excited he's going to stay here, says coaches are always perpetually disappointed. And that's our job. And every day it's pretty much true, right? You can always find something else to get better at. You can always find something else to coach better in a different way. And that's what we're working at daily with our players, especially our O-line.
One or two more for coach.
You've now watched the Ropers for 2 months. Who
Yeah.
are some of the younger guys that are standing out?
Yeah, Christian Hoskins, he had a great day yesterday, had some explosive plays. Obviously Athan goes in there and plays some for us just to get him some more reps. Jacob played a lot of it last night. I saw some guys on the defense side of the ball, the Anthony Smiths of the world. Anthony had a really good day yesterday. Jacob Schuster is getting in there, getting some reps. Some of our young linebackers, the Joey Gerlachs. Joey had a really good day yesterday. Maverick had a good day. It's nice to be able to see some of those young guys. Tony Nelson, one of our offensive linemen from the state of Minnesota, had a really nice day. And again, it's hard for young players, right? When you go from high school and you're starting, you're the best player out, probably on the field, right? Almost every week. And you come into a Big Ten atmosphere and everybody's really good. And then if you come here in June, everything's a shock. Basically, everything for the next month and a half is an orientation. Everything's some type of orientation. You got your academic orientation, you got your culture orientation, you got your position meeting orientation. Everything's an orientation. And then you go to training camp, and then it's like, holy cow, this is a whole different level of practice, size, strength, speed. These are grown men. Remember, the biggest difference I've always said is high school to college, not college to the pros. It's high school to college. And on the field we have now, there's 17-year-olds versus a 28-year-old. We have a kid that's 28 years old. So there's a massive amount of maturity difference. But when they go through training camp, everybody's with everyone, right? Because it's Minnesota versus Minnesota constantly. As you get towards the end of training camp, you got to start game planning. Then all of a sudden you divide into scout teams. And across the country, no matter where I've been, that's the hardest part. Because now all of a sudden, all the things you're doing Minnesota versus Minnesota now go towards opponents. And you still get Minnesota work on your technique, but you're also now on a scout team where now you're giving somebody else's look, somebody else's techniques, somebody else's stunts and blitzes, somebody else's defense, somebody else's offense. And that's hard because you also feel at times, maybe I'm not getting any better. And then you can get discouraged, you can get frustrated. That's why we do Sunday night football, is because one, they get true individual instruction with our coaches. They have the difference between people that really are successful and that aren't successful is really the unrequired work. we can be with you 20 hours, but you can do whatever you want on that field, right? I remember as a player and watching the great ones, they would do hours and hours and hours on their own, right, from film study to on the field. But Sunday night football gives us the ability to work with those young players in individual skill instruction, away from the varsity, if that's what you want to call it. They have a team coffee, what we call like a team stretch. But we do a ton of individual with them, and then we go into a scrimmage. And that's their time to show us how much better they're getting, how much they're improving. You put them in a game atmosphere. You know, we got under the lights. Players are involved, or sidelines are packed full of players. Parents come to those as well. And we watch them get better. And they're always being evaluated, though, too. So I think that, I really like where our young players are at, but that doesn't mean that they're ready to play in Big Ten football yet. They've got to mature. They've got to go through a strength and conditioning program. We've had some freshmen help us, but I'd love to be able to redshirt all of them if I could. I mean, there's some guys that are playing out there on Sunday night that they're going to be really, really special Big Ten players. But they've got to be able to keep getting better, and they need that experience, and that's why we do it. So.
I got to ask this. I saved this for last.
Oh, terrific.
Today's Halloween. You're a small-town Illinois kid. Do you have any favorite Halloween memories or favorite costumes or something like that? I'm assuming you were a Chicago Bear every year.
Yeah, I mean, mine's really boring. I was a Chicago Bear, Jim McMahon, for like 5 straight years. I didn't want to be anything else. If it didn't have anything to do with sports, I didn't want anything to do with it. So I think maybe I was Walter Payton one time, and I switched it up. You know, I had a 34 jersey laying around. So, but Jim McMahon for sure, all the way, the punky QB. So, any other questions?
You must have hair.
What's that?
No costume today?
This is my costume. This is my costume. Yeah. What was it? Did I have hair? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we all used to have hair at some point. But remember, my hair's gone. And my kids say, "Dad, you're bald." I said, "Hold on, I'm not bald. Watch. Give it a day. Watch the hair grow." I said, "This is a choice. Okay, this is a choice to shave my head. I am not bald." And my daughters love to give me stuff on that, and but a lot of guys on the team, I mean, they have a tradition of touching my head after practice. So I don't know, whatever. So, I like Snickers. Yep, I would say that. I always have one before a game too. So. Our kids, we had them, they're in school. So, we're a blended family. So, but we had our kids trick or treat to our house Sunday. Just so walk outside, ring the doorbell, and we're going to go trick or treating with you. That was our trick or treating on Sunday before we had to take them back. So, but I think the Big Ten did the bit of honeys. I'm not a bit of honey person. And those, remember those, the orange and black, just toffee that was just wrapped up. That was the worst. Those, I hope nobody's giving those out. So those were the absolute worst. And most of them were half unwrapped by the time you got them. So, and I was one of those kids, I don't care if it was unwrapped, half wrapped, if it was not wrapped, I was going to eat it. So my parents had to always dig through my, my pillow sack before I would get in there. So, but yeah, that's true. And erasers or notebooks. My neighborhood gave a lot of notebooks out. But it's great. Our staff, Norris Wilson, not to go on a tangent about Halloween, but Norris Wilson does a great job here. We had 150 Hope kids here last week for our Halloween tradition of trick-or-treating to each room, kind of have a little haunted house. We had about 40, 50 players over here. They just have a blast with it. They have that whack-a-mole in the indoor, play a ton of games. I mean, it's really special. So, and then all of our staff, they'll go home between about 4:30 and 6:30 tonight, trick-or-treat with their kids, and then come back. Because as an assistant, I never got a chance to do that. And that was really hard for me, with young kids. And, you kind of, Monday's a game plan day. But I feel like moments of memory is what life's about, period. Win games, lose games, hired, fired. You got to be able to have those experiences with your children. And, I won't have that with my own, but that doesn't mean our staff shouldn't have those today. So I know they'll be gone from about 4:30, 6:30, but then they'll come on back. And they always have some great stories when they come back. So I look forward to hearing those. All right, thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Row the boat, Sky Go Gophers. Happy Halloween.